Hello and welcome into the Starters Podcast edition. I'm Dave Trentadue. That is Simon and George. How's it going, boys?
How's it going, Dave?
What's going on, boys?
Going on the Austin Matthews watch here. Doesn't look like he's going to hit 70 as of the time we're recording this right now. So a little
2 minutes left.
disappointed.
2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah. You guys disappointed? What's your disappointment level at?
Nothing. And I would have liked to seen him. Like I just, I think we sign up to watch these, guys get after these types of numbers. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it. I was watching that game, flipping back and forth to the Sixers and the Heat game as well, which was coming down to the wire.
They just scored, huh?
Kucherov just got his 100th assist, so that's pretty. That's pretty special, but no, Matthews. I don't know, got a couple of minutes out there. I guess he plays the last couple of minutes, but hasn't looked dangerous tonight. Actually, had one. He had one right off the bar.
Yeah,
and that was the one time he looked dangerous.
All right. Don't forget to everyone follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube at The Starters 690. Brought to you by Club CDL. Of course, check out clubcdl.com if you want to join the club for the summer. They have great deal for the summer for tennis, squash, fitness. They have nice tennis camps for the kids. So check everything out, clubcdl.com. All right. You ready, boys? Ready to go into question number one? The question number one is brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. Cunningham's Pub, of course, live music every Friday night, every Saturday night. They have live music also on Sundays called the Sunday Snuggle Session. And obviously the best chicken wings in town. All right, boys. I want you guys, the Habs season has come to an end. I want you guys to describe the season in 3 words or less.
3 words or less. I'm just going to say one word.
Fair.
Content.
Content.
Which is, it's not a compliment, but I don't think it's a negative. Content is okay. It's okay. There was a lot of positives. I think you can check off. You got yourself a top line. I think you can maybe. Things go well next year, you should be able to squeeze 100 goals out of those guys, even if Suzuki comes down to earth a little bit more with his goal scoring. Caulfield picks up a few more. Slavkovsky picks up a few more, so you can hover around that 100 mark. Newhook, Gallagher, Armia kind of played really well down the stretch. I don't know if you have to go in with that like set in stone, but I think you got to see Matheson play at a high level, 60 minutes of Mayu, 2 games worth of Hudson. Goalie thing is okay. Look, there's a lot of they checked a lot of boxes, but I'm never going to sign off on anything ultra positive when it's a non-playoff team, and it's 3 years in a row. And I think it's like probably the last 6 years they've started in the Atlantic Division, they have not made the postseason. So content, leave it at that. Up to the way you want to decipher the word content.
All right. I thought of it as a positive thing at first, so I like it. Content.
I don't think it's ultra negative. I don't think of it as a negative way, but like, after you watch the new Marvel movie, I don't think you want to come out there and say that you've been content with the movie. You want a little bit more than that.
That's fair. George?
I'm going to say going forward. So I think definitely a lot of people see it as an improvement, but, wins and losses is what you're judged on in professional sports. They don't have more wins than last year, but they're going forward. They're going in the right direction. I think everybody sees that. There's going to be some big decisions coming up this summer, I get the feeling, because that blue line, we've talked about it. It's backlogged. Hudson looked great. Mayu, is he going to push for a spot next year? I don't know. The leader in plus minus on the Canadians, funny enough, which is an interesting stat in itself, plus minus, because there's a lot to take away from it and not take away from it, is Kovacevic. So, it's kind of weird because you look at that and you're like, what do you do? Then you got guys that have kind of the same game. So I think when you look at the Montreal Canadiens, their season in a whole, they're going in the right direction. They're going forward. I think, up on the 7th floor where they talk about these things, They're thinking playoffs next year. I think the fans are starting to think playoffs next year. And I have a friend that works actually for the Canadians. Was speaking to him today, and he's only been hired this year, so he doesn't have really much to say on the regime of the last regime. But what he did say is there's a lot of positivity, whether it's Suzuki's leadership, kind of doing it by example, kind of quietly doing it by example, or whether it's just these young guys that love hockey and are ready to go to work, or Martin St-Louis that has these guys working every game. They didn't get blown out in a lot of games. It's going forward. So I think that's what I'm going to go with.
All right, I like it. Friend who works for the Canadians. That's
Yes,
we're gonna
sir.
have to do some detective work and figure.
You guys could figure it out pretty easy if you figure out my background and everything. You could figure it out pretty quick.
Gotcha. All right. We'll stick with the Habs for question number 2, brought to you by Christina's Cuisine. Probably the best. Follow them on Instagram at Christina's Cuisine. One of the best looking Instagram pages when it comes to Greek food I've ever seen. I mean, it looks absolutely delicious. Their latest post is calamari, which to me is very important when I go to a restaurant. Is how rate their calamari went. It has to be a 9 or a 10 for me to appreciate it. It looks absolutely stunning. Simon, you've been there recently?
Yeah, I'm often there during the, believe it or not, the lunch cycle. It's not a big place, and it's a popular place, so you got to make your reservations and stuff like that. You got a good chance to walk in at lunch, and you get the same stuff you get at night at lunch. So, yep, just on the corner there of Notre Dame and Elizabeth in Chamonix. Just a great place. Some traditional Greek cuisine to go along as well with most of the popular dishes like pitas and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you go christinascuisine.ca. They do dine-in, they do takeout, and they also do catering. So
doing catering is big for them, absolutely. So if you're looking to cater a party, I'd hit them up.
All right. So question number 2, guys. We'll keep it with the Habs. Marty St-Louis just got the extension, 2-year extension, so he'll be the coach ostensibly for the next 3 years of the for the Canadians. Yay or nay? Very simple.
I mean, look, I spoke about it briefly in the first question. Martin St-Louis brings a certain. I think it's probably the best move the Canadians have made in the last 5 years. To be quite honest with you, he's just he's today's coach. I mean, not only does he get it from the point of view of a player, he gets it from the point of view of an undrafted player that had to work, that had to kind of go through the ups and downs of an NHL career and become a Hall of Famer. And he did it through preservation and just continuous hard work, and he's an example for all these players. And it's very hard when you're in a locker room. I can only imagine when you got a Hall of Fame coach that was undrafted and he's telling you, look, you got to bust your ass out there or it's not going to work. I think it's tough for today's NHL player to look at him and be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because if you look at other coaches, and I'm not gonna knock anybody, but Bruce Boudreau is a guy that played some he played some hockey a few years back, but definitely not a star. He doesn't scream excellence when you look at him right now. Maybe he did 25 years ago, and maybe he is a good coach, X's and O's, but does he connect with today's players the way Martin St-Louis does? No. I think Martin St-Louis is the right guy for this team. A young team that's coming up that needs kind of that leadership on how to do it. And I think the Canadians, this is a no-brainer, great move, headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that the stability part, I think, is really important. Turnover at the coach position is not ideal. You show me a well-balanced, functional, professional team, I'll probably show you stability in a couple of places. The ownership, general manager, and specifically the head coach position. So rotating somebody out and not giving him an extension, I think, would have been absolutely silly. I think he resonates with his team. I think it's the perfect fit. And the Canadians on paper they're not a playoff team. I don't think, maybe the Capitals in an odd way. Like, I would not trade the Capitals lineup for the Canadians lineup just because the Canadians lineup is a lot younger. But you look at their lineup against some of the other teams in this league, and they're the inferior lineup. Like, they literally have, they don't have a point a game player. They don't have a Norris Trophy finalist. They don't have a Selke Trophy finalist. So, and I watched every game, as I do pretty much every year. And look, I can pinpoint to you many times where the Lakers coaching staff has hurt him. I can point to you many times when the Bears coaching staff has hurt him. These are teams that I follow. I don't know, man, how many times I can, tune into those 82 games and specifically the losses where I've sat there and listened to the post-game show on 690 and I've said, man, when are they going to just, go at the coach here for that mistake he made or this, whatever he did here or that. I'm not saying that he's perfect, but I don't think they've been he's been the issue with any of their losses. I think it's more talent driven. Are there nights that John Cooper gets the better of him? Hell yeah. John Cooper is going to get the better of many coaches in this league, So I think it's a great fit. It works. I think, maybe I don't think there's been a conversation with your captain just yet because of this extension. Probably would have been, that conversation with Nick Suzuki in the front office probably happens the next day or so. But I think they know their locker room well enough that this is the guy that the players want behind the bench.
All right, fair enough. I guess the only thing left to see is how's he going to do it when you need to pick up the wins and the games matter a little bit.
For sure. And I also think, when, I mentioned it today, is when is he going to – there's going to be a point here, whether he likes it or not, and, one of his – I don't know if his mentor or somebody he looks up to or somebody that he worked for and somebody that he won a cup with was John Tortorella. And John Tortorella went right after his captain and benched his captain. Now, is that the reason why they lost 7 games in a row? Maybe. I don't cover the Flyers. I don't watch a lot of Flyers hockey. But John Tortorella felt that there was a player that wasn't pulling his weight. Marty St-Louis had several players this year that were not pulling their weight. And they were veterans, and he never went after them. He never sat them for a minute on the bench. He never sat them for a period. He never put them up in the rafters. At some point, I think, and we'll see how he is able to handle that, he's going to have to be the bad guy at some point. Somebody is you're going to have to ruffle somebody's feathers, and that time will come, and we'll see how he acts.
And 30 wins won't cut it next year, guaranteed. I can tell you that right now.
I don't think they're a playoff team next year unless something ridiculous happens that they walk away from the draft with Celebrini or some type of incredible acquisition because some great player wants out of wherever and his preferred landing spot is Montreal. Fine. I can't forecast that, but I don't believe that this is going to be a playoff team next year, but I'm with George. This year we saw progression in individuals. Next year you need to see progression as a collective.
Absolutely.
15 point, this is the thing that people are, I don't agree with this with a lot of Habs fans. Hey, it's 15 points out of a playoff spot. This year it's 15 points out of a playoff spot. Go look at the West. I believe the West is 97 points to get into the bottom playoff spot, and every one of those teams still has a game to play. Vegas still has to play a game. The Kings still have to play a game, and the Predators still have. I know the Predators might be done, but the Kings and Vegas still have to play hockey, and they're sitting at 97 points. So, yes, this year, 91 in the Eastern, 97, 98, in the Western Conference. Might be the reverse next year. Might be that 97 points gets you into the postseason next year. So you're 15 points out this year. It doesn't mean you'll be 15 points out next year.
It also gets you an 8 seed. It doesn't get you a home ice advantage against a nice matchup. So 15 points sounds great, but if you're going to be 4-out playing the best team in the East or the West, not so good that 8 spot.
The Red Wings missed the playoffs because they lost a shootout somewhere in game 45, 46. So if the Canadians a lot of the fans will be like, yeah, they'll be a playoff team next year. Well, what do the Red Wings say? They literally missed out because if they flip one of their shootout losses into a win, they're in. The Penguins played the Capitals 4 times. If they just flip one of those Capitals losses to wins, they're in. The Sabres finished 5-6 points out of a playoff spot. So 15 points out of a playoff spot is one thing, and then jumping 6-7 teams is another thing. So my level of expectation is progression. I'll say this. To me, next year is more on the front office than it is for Martin St-Louis. Ken Hughes has draft picks. He has acquisition. He has a plethora of defensemen that are NHL caliber. Brendan Gallagher is a guy that got 16 goals this year. Yoel Armia had a good year, so you have assets that maybe you want to move, professional players that perhaps can entice somebody. You have players, you have assets, you have first-round picks the Jets pick. I think this offseason and next season is more on Ken Hughes than it is on Marty St-Louis and his squad. You see what you can get from this squad. This is what you get from the squad. You get a healthy Kirby Dach, great. But I think this is the front office that needs to tweak and make this team better, at least on paper.
All right. We're speaking playoffs. Let's stick with the playoffs. Question number 3 brought to you by Fresh MTL. They're a juice and smoothie bar. They're a bistro. You can grab stuff. You can meal plan. Very, very healthy. I saw that steak going and all sorts of
steak avocado today, Dave.
Steak what?
Steak avocado wrap today. That's what I had.
Wow.
Yes.
Was it good? Obviously.
It was delicious. And more importantly, it was healthy. It tasted good too, which is always the bonus, man.
Well, yeah. That's a must.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I did chest buys today and one leg exercise.
Chest bras. That's what you did. Yeah, chest bras.
First thing I noticed when you came on screen.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So check them out at Fresh MTL on Instagram. They're very, very good. 1164 Autoroute Chamonix in Laval. All right, question number 3, guys. Playoffs about to start. Who is your sleeper team for the NHL playoffs?
Simon?
Vegas might be an 8 seed. Does that make him a sleeper team? I don't know. I'm going to say my sleeper team in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they're a damn good hockey team, but tough road to get to the Stanley Cup final. I think it's the Jets. I think they have a killer matchup in the first round against the Habs. Dallas might play Vegas. They might play whoever. They might play the Kings. I'm just going on, who should be favored in that series. Then the Jets will get Dallas. So it's a tough road for them. But, man, the Monahan, Toffoli acquisitions were fantastic. Scheifele's having a very good year. I think if they can stay healthy, they have a legitimate number one, the guy that can handle the power play. And they're probably one of the very few teams that can roll into the postseason and be absolutely 100% content with their goalie. Dallas can say that too on paper. Like Oettinger had some crazy numbers when they made those, playoff runs, but he hasn't been brilliant as of late. Whereas Hellebuck, minus the 7-game losing streak there for the Jets, you could have had him in probably not in the top 3 when it comes to league MVP, but definitely in a conversation at 6 or 7 when it comes to league MVP voting. So I'm going to say all the elements are there. Tough first round matchup against a quality hockey team. So I'll go with the Jets as a little sleeper team there.
All right, George.
So a little revisionist history. I have taken the Edmonton Oilers against the Toronto Maple Leafs for my Stanley Cup final. My dark horse boys, a team nobody is talking about for some reason, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have the leading scorer in the NHL, a Norris Trophy defenseman who is an instant Hall of Famer when he retires. They've got Steven Stamkos, and they have a goalie they're very content with that you forgot about, Mr. Vasilevsky. I think they have everything that you need to win. Brandon Hagel's had a great year. Braden Point's had a monster year. I mean, they up and down the lineup. They have a great coach. They've already won a couple of Stanley Cups, and no one's talking about these guys. So I think if you look at which team is a dark horse, it's hard to say the Lightning are a dark horse, but no one's talking about them. Nobody's giving them any props here. A lot of, the smart money, if you will, is not on Tampa Bay, which is kind of weird to me because I think they're probably the most accomplished team in the playoffs. So Tampa Bay Lightning.
Wow. All right. I like it. Good choices. We'll keep them up and we'll either praise you or humiliate you later on.
The Dallas Stars are the 1 seed in the West, and even less people are talking about them than the Lightning. I think more people talk about the Lightning than the Dallas Stars.
Fair, but I wouldn't have counted the Dallas Stars as a dark horse. To be honest.
I know, but I'm just
throwing that up.
It's the 1 seed in the West and an impressive. Well, not the one. Sorry, Vancouver's the 1 seed in the West. No, Dallas is the 1 seed in the West, and
I'm going to go on record and tell you that your Jets getting bounced in the first round.
Listen, to a quality team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to lose to a bunch of schmoes there.
No, they're not.
Speaking of schmoes or quality teams, whatever you want, we'll go to question number 4, brought to you by EA Fitness, eafitness.inc on Instagram. They have a cool spring challenge for you where they're giving away a trip to Europe, a plane voucher to Europe. It's absolutely crazy. They have three kind of programs plans you could select from: Jump Starter Plan, the Accelerator Plan, or the Game Changer Plan. There's 3 plans you could go. They're very tailored and very well thought out, and you could go see them on their Instagram page, and you could pick any one of those three, and then I think there's a little bit of conditions, and then you qualify to enter into a giveaway for a plane voucher to Europe, which is not too shabby as a prize.
Not at all. Not too bad at all.
So check them out today, eafitness.inc on Instagram. You won't want to regret it. All right, guys, Bruins, Leafs, who you got?
Look, I have no choice but to go with the Maple Leafs on this one. But I will say, watching the Maple Leafs play in the last week, I've been left with a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks. The defense looks subpar. The goaltending looks subpar. Do they turn it on in the playoffs? Can Matthews, Marner, and Nylander carry the team to a Stanley Cup appearance and a Stanley Cup final? I don't know. I'm starting to doubt it. But against the Bruins, I just think, the Bruins, like it or not, they're a tough out any team they play. It's going to be a tough game. But I just think the Maple Leafs have their back to the wall here. People are going to lose their jobs, and there's going to be people out of town if the Maple Leafs don't get out of the first round. So for that reason alone, I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs in a tough series. This will be a tough one. 6 or 7. I'm going to take the Maple Leafs.
All right. Simon?
So I think this is the best matchup the Leafs could have had. I just don't think they match up well against the Florida Panthers. We saw that play itself out in last year's playoffs, and the Leafs are pretty much, I know the Domi and Bertuzzi acquisition, but it's pretty much a very similar team to the one that the Florida Panthers, that they went up against with the Florida Panthers last year. And the Panthers are pretty much the same team as well, and it didn't go well for the Leafs. So I thought that the Bruins were the ideal matchup for the Leafs. And then I did some investigating, and I found out that the Bruins beat them all 4 times this year. Dave, I'm wondering, I know that I tuned in to watch some of those games. I just don't remember the Bruins winning all 4. Were any of those games close? Was it where they run off the pitch? I don't know.
It wasn't pretty for the Leafs, and there's a lot of games where they just didn't show up. It's not a good, in my opinion, not a great match.
Is there a better matchup though?
Probably not, to be honest, but it's just the psychology of it, right? Like, again, the Boston Bruins, you talk about slaying the first round beast. I think this is even more important. Slaying the Bruins has always been their Achilles heel. I
agree.
And I'm happy that this is the first round match. I'm watching. It's 7:00, 7:30 starts. I'm gonna watch every minute of as 5 games, 6 games, 7, whatever, 4.
They have no choice now. They got to win this. This is back to the wall. I'm telling you, their heads are gonna fly here.
Yeah, I'm picking the Leafs, and it has nothing to do with hockey and everything to do with, I don't know, you have to win, man. You
have to win.
There's no coming back from this. This is just, it's not about Charlie Coyle or Austin Matthews or McAvoy versus Marner. I don't care about stats. Leafs have to win because they have to win. That's it. Don't put. I don't want anybody to put $1 on it, but it has nothing to do with power plays. I don't care what the matchups were when it comes to the penalty kill. It's literally the Leafs are running out of it's now or never. I know we've been saying it for a while, but they got Matthews back and they got Nylander back, and what are they going to do with Marner and Tavares? They've had the run. It's now or never. If you don't beat them now, I'm not sure. You look at the Leafs, what they can bring to you 1, 2, and 3 at the center ice position. And again, stick tap to the Boston Bruins. You're not good at center ice. I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you continue to compete for not only the top spot in the Atlantic Division. You're chasing down a President's Cup trophy up until a week ago. And I get it, from the blue line in, they're stellar. Mm-hmm. But if the Leafs cannot exploit this center ice matchup, there's going to be some from the shoulders and up issues for a very long time.
Oh yeah, for sure. That fan base too is just
they're ready. They're ready to just march out onto Yonge Street. I mean, they better win.
Does it just not feel though like Boston's in their kind of like centennial season where they have the retro jerseys all the time? that Jack Edwards is retiring at the end of the year. It just seems like a setup for a terrible outcome for the Leafs.
I think even worse than that is when the Leafs lose, they look atrocious.
Yeah, well, that's
they
it.
look
Another
so bad, guys. When the Toronto Maple Leafs lose a hockey game, it's not one of those hockey games where you're like, okay, well, they played hard, didn't get the bounces. They just don't show up.
Yeah, well, that's it. And that's been their criticism in the playoffs forever. And that now you got to show up. And then the goaltending too. Like Samsonov looked like he turned it around, and then at the end of the year, he looks like he's going off the cliff again. So I have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, this is a Bruins team that was chasing down point records of the 70s Canadians, and they were
just last year.
Up 3-1 in that series, so there's going to be no moment where the Leafs take the foot off the gas. So the Leafs are in trouble. The Leafs are in trouble here. But again, you just got to win for the sake of winning, for the sake of sanity. That's it.
And I'll add a final point, Dave. Game 1 is going to be telling.
Oh, of course.
Because I'll tell you, if Toronto has a bad Game 1, this series could be over very quick. Very quick. Very quick.
Oh man, it's going to be fun. At least
it will be fun.
This is what sports is about. This is what the NHL is about. It's an amazing match. As much as like the kind of the way the standings are, people are clamoring for change and stuff. I mean, you get these cool matchups every year almost. So it'll be pretty cool to see. We'll see what happens. All right, on to our next question. Brought to you by Resto Vivaldi, best bring your own wine restaurant in all of Montreal, located in the West Island in Pierrefonds. Check them out at Resto Vivaldi on Instagram, and tell Steve and Dave that the starters sent you. They'll love to hear it. All right, guys. So fresh off the news of the NBA banning Raptors Jonte Porter for his gambling problems, and obviously there's the Shohei Ohtani situation over in baseball, and we all know about Pete Rose and stuff like that. I just want to know, like, it's a theoretical question, I guess, just considering the recent relationship that all sports leagues seem to have with gambling. Are sports leagues hypocritical when it comes to that kind of thing? That's what I want to
know. No, they are zero hypocritical as far as I'm concerned. That's kind of like saying, in the 1980s, a player, pounded a bottle of Jack, got into a car and wrapped it around a pole and took 2 other cars with him. And that's blaming the NHL with their ties to whoever alcohol company or beverage or beer company was advertising at the time. You didn't have to tell I don't think you had to tell the players in the 1980s, listen, we're in bed with beer and vodka because they advertise and we create revenues and we pay you, but it really doesn't give you the green light to get smashed and get behind your automobile. You didn't have to say that. It was kind of like you knew it wasn't done. I'm pretty certain, I'm 1000% certain that every NBA player gets every professional athlete and amateur athlete at the high level of amateur athletes gets an earful, not a little bit, an earful daily reminder all the time that, dude, you're the 1%ers. You want to live like kings, no problem. Don't beat anybody up. Don't get caught doing drugs, and don't gamble on sports. And you're going to live like a king for the rest of your life. These are the 3 things. Anything else you want to do, knock yourself out. But these are the 3 things you can't do. So no, I have zero pity for anybody who is told this and is an adult. Now, this is the kicker, and this is what's going to happen going forward, and this is going to be the big story. If guys are going to come out and tell you that this is a addiction, that's where the NHL is going to have a problem. Like if a player is addicted to alcohol and a player is addicted to narcotics and he's caught doing it, there is a place that the National Hockey League, and there's things that the National Hockey League will do to put that player back on the straight and narrow. And they will help the young man or the older guy or whatever with his addiction. Now, gambling, I've been around enough gamblers in my life. It is an absolute addiction. And this is where the gray area is going to be. If you take care of me after you caught me doing a line of coke and you don't throw me out of the league, why are you coming after me? Now, if you gamble on your team, you're done, right? Because you can come in there and say, I'm a degenerate gambler. I have issues I can't stop. Well, Simon, you play for the Habs. Why did you take the Habs to lose 6 times? You kind of lose a little bit of that, that edge that you might have by saying that this is an addiction, right? But this is where it's going to go. And guys are going to be like, dude, I'm hooked on this. I can't get off this. And I need help. But for now, when you're doing it the way some of these guys are doing, circumventing, playing against themselves, betting on your team to lose, nah, no sympathy for me for that. Listen, man, I'm in a certain industry. George is in a certain industry. Dave, you're in a certain industry. There are tons of rules and regulations that we can't do. I know as a real estate broker, I know every rule that will cause me to lose my license, to be unemployed. George in his profession has a set of rules that he knows that if he's done and he gets caught doing that, it's done. It's over. Zero tolerance. And for professional athletes, this is it, man. It might be a difficult thing. I get it because you have an addiction, but you can't gamble. That's it.
Fair enough. George?
So when you sent out the question earlier today, I had to think about which way I was going to come with my answer on this one, because it's a complicated question, and Simon touched on a few things there. Does it scream? Is it hypocritical of the NBA or any professional sports league that's in bed with these betting companies to suspend people for betting? Absolutely, it is. There's no doubt about that, because they take the revenue from this, encourage betting, and then when it's one of their players that has an addiction or has a problem with it, they come down hard on them. In this case, do I feel sympathy or empathy for Porter? No. Clearly, Porter was, not only betting on basketball, but betting on games that he was involved in. So there is no pity there. However, I have a great deal of difficulty with the ethical question of it here, because these leagues make a ton of money, okay? And once upon a time, the New York Marathon had Marlboro as one of their lead sponsors.
Amazing.
That makes no sense to me.
That's amazing.
And it makes no sense to me to look at the NBA and see bet X whatever as their lead sponsor. And I understand this is a business at the end of the day, like any other business, and you want to generate the most amount of revenue possible. But the leagues know this is going to happen when you get in bed with these companies, and it's at some point you're responsible for the problem too. So I would tell you, if you want to wash your hands of being a little bit guilty about it, for every dollar of revenue you take in from these companies, put $1 in prevention. Put $1. Don't come to me and collect billions of dollars, billions, and then cry and want to just go after all these players. There's players in the NFL who have been suspended for entire seasons, not because they bet on their own team, but because they made bets at the football facility. Mm-hmm. It is major hypocrisy from these leagues. It doesn't make any sense.
Listen, George, I don't know if you can say it's major hypocrisy if I tell you day one of camp that you can't, when you're on, and I believe it was the Detroit Lions player, which I'm drawing a blank on his name, like you're told, dude, just go across the street to the Tim Hortons and lay your bets. You can't do it. It's hard for me to feel bad for a guy, an adult, George, an adult who maybe went to school for 3 years. Maybe he didn't pay attention. That's on him. That's not on the National Football League. But dude, you can't gamble on the Chicago Bears. Players cannot gamble on anything that is Chicago Bears.
Simon, I have no problem with the suspensions. I have no problem with the rules. What I have a problem with is the league taking money from these companies and then coming and saying, well, we told you not to do it. Well, put more money in prevention.
This is the question you have to ask, George. And I listen, to me, what PK Subban's father did when he went after Wayne Gretzky and he went after, who was it, Jamie Foxx and Connor McDavid, and he talked about all these elite superstars going out there promoting this. I am totally on board with that. Dude, McDavid and Gretzky, really, this is what you need to be out there. This is where you need to make your advertising dollar. For me, listen, I'm not a gambler. Never was have I put bets in? Absolutely, but not a gambler. Children, I fear for parents, especially ones that have children that are totally into sports. I cringe and think, what is going on behind closed doors? Because I remember when I was in Vanier, and you had to call a bookie to make a bet. So there were only a couple of us that knew how to do that and would call a bookie. Now you can, excuse me, mother, can I just go to the bathroom, please, and drop $500 on the Habs? You know, like, so to me, if you were to abolish all these gambling ads across the board, I'd love it. I would absolutely love it. But let's not kid like George. If there was no bet, whatever, on the helmets or bet on the field or this or that, do you think that none of this would ever?
No, it would still. I just think ethically the leagues have a responsibility to their players and to the fans to do more to prevent this. And if the league, for every dollar they took in, they put, I don't know, let's say, a quarter of it to prevent and say, listen, we have these prevention programs. Not we told you not to do it, but we have prevention programs. And we sit down with these guys every, I don't know, 3 months, and we go over, what are the possibility of these addictions and these problems and this, that, but they don't do that. They take the money in and then they're like, well, they wash their hands of the problem, but they're also contributing to the problem. That's my point to it.
I agree with you. You're absolutely right about that. I just think that if you were to abolish all the gambling advertising, I don't think that gambling would go away in pro sports.
It wouldn't. Cigarettes haven't gone away. I mean, we agree there.
Of the 19 whatevers,
we agree.
Pete Rose was doing it before there was any bans on everything. But you're right. At some point, everybody has to step up, and
everybody's got to step up. It's a societal issue, and the leagues, if they're going to take money from these companies, have to do more. That's where I stand on it. And are the players? The players are adults. They know what's right and wrong. Unfortunately for them, whether it's an addiction or not, they broke a rule and there is punishments to it. And that's okay. But the league has to do more. All these leagues that are in bed with these companies have to do more.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, Simon, I mean, they don't even have to go to the bathroom to bet $500 on the Habs. They can do it mid-conversation. They're that skilled at it. I have some friends whose younger brothers, they don't even watch much sports, but they're just bored. So they bet on hockey. I go over to their house and they'll ask me, like, oh, who do you think will win tonight? They're betting on these games and they don't even follow the sport. It's just a thing to do for them. So there's a little bit of a danger in that. And I know it's not really the issue. Also, to go back on it was Jameson Williams from the Detroit Lions, who was suspended for the gambling. All right, guys.
I think he was putting in a fantasy football team or a March Madness bracket.
Yeah. It wasn't a crazy thing.
No. But he did it on site, So
there's been a few guys that have gotten suspensions for that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. It was a good episode. Don't forget, everyone, to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere you can at the Starter 690, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.
Ciao, boys.
Have a good night.